All right. Hello, friends. So I'm Logan and I'll be your MC for today. Thank you for joining us. We are very, very fortunate to hear from Mr. Chieh, the president of the IFOA. I do not need to elaborate on Mr. Chieh's illustrious biography, but at the same time, I must say that you should study his biography when you get the chance. It's a very important read for all of us budding actuaries. He's an influential leader of our actuarial profession. He tirelessly calls upon all of us to transform and equip ourselves to continue to be relevant for the present and for the future. Some of the recent efforts he is involved in include the COVID-19 Actuaries Response Group and Actuaries for Transformational Change. Today, we have a very precious opportunity to hear his views on topics which are very personal and deeply relevant to our lives. They may be titled Tips for Senior Actuaries, but I'm sure actuaries of all age groups will benefit from these insights. We would like this to be an interactive session with lots of Q&A. So please raise all questions that you have on this Zoom chat here and don't hold yourself back. Also, we request you to turn on your video if you don't mind. We will feel more warm and cozy that we're getting to know each other personally. And now I give you Mr. Chieh.
Thanks very much, Logan. And thanks ASM for inviting me to speak to all of you. I look forward to it. And please, you can turn on your video if you want to. Then I can take a screenshot. The person on my video, which I'm very slightly surprised, is Patrick Poon. Patrick Poon is the second president of ASM. And I went to see him when I was age 16 or 17 or 18. He was in the AIA Tower in Jalan Ampang. I went to see there and I saw a lot of BMW cars parked outside. And so this was the right place to go. And so Patrick, I'm very pleased to see you. The last time I saw you was in Hong Kong in 2019. Very pleased to see you, Patrick.
Yes, very nice to see you too.
And I also know that Zainal is in the audience. I saw Zainal, who qualified at the same time as me in 1984. So I'm a bit, but I suppose it's the way the presentation has been framed, yeah. So if you guys want to put a video on, I can take a screenshot, at least I can have a nice screenshot, but I can do that later as well. But you can, but when I share screen, you can choose whatever video you want. I suggest you all don't ask questions verbally, so you mute yourself, but you can do it on the chat, and then Logan will then summarize questions, yeah. So I want to start in a fairly relaxed way, in a fairly relaxed way, and in a fairly authentic way, yeah. Sophia Cheng, I haven't seen her yet. Sophia, I hope you're in the audience. Thanks for inviting me. She called me in November. She messaged me. I said, of course, I'll be happy to speak to ASM anytime. But then you say that what topic? You say that anything on development. I say that I've just given a presentation to the London School of Economics students, yeah, and it was titled The President's Journey, 43 years of actuarial journey or something like that, the President's story. So I said, okay, I would happy to do that. I said I'll continue my story from age 35 because when I did the presentation, for the LSE, they were more interested from student to become an actuary because become an actuary will solve all their problems, right? Because all of them believe if they are an FIA or FSA, they will solve all their problems in life. As I did also, as I suspect many of you did, but then you realize it's not true, you see? It's not true. Then maybe become a chief actuary, you might solve all your problems, yeah? Then you might realize it's not true, huh? Or then you become a CEO, you will solve all your problems. It's not quite true either. Or maybe become a very rich man, like some of our past presidents, a very rich man, you will solve all your problems. It could be true, but I suspect there are more to life than just all these things, yeah? So this is the conversation about that, about purpose and meaning, and about life, about life. So I requested that they don't record this so I can be very open with the audience. And also Sylvia told me she wants to come, when I said that maybe you could talk about crisis and burns out, mid-career crisis and stagnation. Oh, I definitely want to come, I definitely want to come. So I showed the presentation to Logan. And Logan said that this, and I showed him two presentations. One was the actual journey, and then one other presentation I did for NTUC young executives to get promoted, right? And he said, oh, we need this as well, because we don't want just about your life story, you want the practical things. But many questions was about burnout and stagnation, right? And some of the questions which Corinne collated was about that. So I want to, so therefore I'm going to share my screen now to show you how am I going to play it, how am I going to play it, make sure I get the two stories, yeah. Okay, so you can see the screen, right? So today this is presentation. So I have changed the framework of discussion. Yeah. So if you like, there are two stories going on. Yeah. One is the story of the LSE presentation, and I will take snippets of it. But underneath it, there are a personal story. A private story, because all of us have different journeys. And one is our public journey, and then the other one is our private journey, which is our family and our private relationships, which are not always exposed. Yeah. Then there is a personal journey, which is yourself as a person, and underpinning that is the underlying journey. So I'm going into that space, that space. So I'm going to flip to the LSE presentation shortly, but not yet, because the problem we are trying to solve in the next 75 minutes of discussion is that we want to be an actuary, right? That's an LSE graduating. If I want to be an actuary, I will be successful when I qualify. Yeah. The second question is that after being an actuary, actually I realized that the work is not that interesting. And my boss is sometimes not a nice person, or the company's politics is not very agreeable, right? Or I'm stagnating, question of promotion. And then if I get promoted, I will be happy, right? Okay, then that is another story. But ultimately, we want to be ultimately successful. But then once you arrive, you realize that life can still give you desolation and meaninglessness, and some of us have it, some of us don't have it. So I'm going to speak from the space. So are we all good? So now I'm going to flip to a shared screen on the other. Okay, I need to see how I can share this now. Okay. Just give me a moment. I should be good in this. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I think I just share the whole screen is easier. So I share this. Okay. Okay. So this is the LSE presentation, and I'm going to give you a scan, and you will be interested in this in great detail. I just tell you, this is how I grew up, going regional, world of psychology. So this is my public story, right? And the underlying themes is what I've accomplished and what I was interested in. Yeah. But I want to take the story from age 35 onwards. So this Kajang High School, growing up in Sememi. This is my parents. Let me just give me a moment because I'm distracted by quite a few things here. Just give me a moment. Okay, I'm better now. So that my teacher and all that. I'm going to go to slide 29, right? Slide 29. So you can see I was really successful appearing in newspapers elsewhere, right? So one of the questions I got is that, do you feel insecure in your job, right? Do you feel insecure in your job? I do actually. I do feel insecure, but it doesn't show in your public life, right? Maybe none of you all do. But I have insecurity, and this is a public story at that time, right? In 1991, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and for those who are old enough in Singapore, they will remember, Law Sam Keng was the insurance commissioner, and he introduced the MAS 306, right? And MAS 306 requires agency compensation to be reduced. And I was at the crossfire because I was the deputy general manager and actuary at the time. So the whole agency, not the whole, maybe a large part of them wanted me to resign. Yeah, wanted me to resign. It was very serious. Yeah, it was very serious. And I was I was having a holiday with my wife at the time, my first wife, and the letters were written to London, yeah, and they were very powerful people. And this has occurred, and I may say so, in Great Eastern and in AIA, where they target certain executives because they disagree with what you do. Today's discussion is not about agency compensation, but it was a period of great stress for me, and I felt insecure because my boss, who was a very good boss, Trevor Perry, was a very sales-oriented guy. And one of his considerations maybe we should take Chieh out of Singapore, which would be seen as bad news. But he stuck with me. Yeah, he stuck with me. So that was the first crisis. I endured into 1992 to launch Pooling. Yeah, and Pooling saved me because Pooling was the first comprehensive series of investment-linked products in Singapore. And today, actually within 10 years, from 1992 to 2000 to 2002, it became rolled out across Asia, in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, and it was created the highest embedded value for Prudential. Yeah, we're talking about billions, across Asia. But the product was set up in Singapore, and that was in 91, 92, my first crisis. Yeah. So then I got promoted to be a CEO. So this is my public story, right? So I got promoted to a CEO. This appeared in February 1994. I promoted to CEO, right? All very good news, right? But later in the year, my marriage broke down. My marriage broke down, and it was so I had a divorce. Yeah, in October we separated. So that was the most difficult crisis I probably had. So the Pooling was 1992, yeah, and of course maybe the thing broke off because I was something quite sensitive, yeah. So 92 there was Pooling, and I mentioned how successful it was, but short term it was very successful for Prudential in Asia. That was the basis of the rollout in Asia, and then and for the next 94 I became the full CEO, but 6 months later, I had a divorce. I mentioned that. Did y'all hear that? Y'all did hear that, right?
No,
and
not yet. That's the first time you heard it.
Okay. Anyway, so I got a chance to reframe it more properly. So I had a divorce. Yeah. And I said my grieving period took me about 12 to 18 months. Yeah. And there were stages of anger, denial, despair, anxiety, depression. Not so much depression, despair. Tears flowing down my cheek. So it was a difficult period. And I will come back to the word reinvention later on because it led to quite a few things in my life. So there was a period of crisis, right? That was my personal journey. So relationship, if your personal journey is not smooth or integral or flourishing, it's very hard to maintain your public journey. But of course, we still keep a brave front, right? So this is that is a journey which is underneath all these slides. So all these slides are prepared for the LIC audience, right? Which is a public journey because I'm motivating them. But I didn't go as far as this, as age 35. So this is 35 onwards, okay? So that is 34. That was 1994, 34, 35, yeah.
Suee, sorry, there's a suggestion because the connection is a bit spotty. Can we all turn off video to help your connection to be a bit stronger?
Yeah, your autumn video off. Yeah, and I actually, as it turned out, you put the video on when we talk, when we don't need the slide. Can you all turn the video off, except the panel, except the panel. Are we good now? Okay, is it better?
Yeah, okay. It's okay. If ever it breaks, I'll
okay, you can turn the panel off. Okay. Okay, I lost my flow. So so there was this grief, right? But the two crises I had led to very positive things. In the agency crisis, it's actually helped me to organize my own resources for the introduction of investment linked, which was a big issue because we don't have the computer systems and all that, right? It was unitized, it's regular premium, and you can choose your sum assured according to, so very flexible. It was modeled on many UK products at that time. So that crisis gave me the ability to do that. The marital broke down also led to a lot of reflection, and I will come back to that a bit later. But I'll show this slide. Building a championship team, and if I did a lot of things differently, from exercising as well as clothing, and I attended styling courses, because I was a fairly typical, without sounding rude to anyone, a bit of a nerd, and dress very local, but now I'm still dressed local. I'm not saying that I'm very stylish, I'm not. But certainly people tell me my colors were wrong, my glasses were wrong, my haircut was wrong. So I went to Jiu Lo's course, right? So, and I learned to dive, and got fit, and of course a new world was born. And I also learned about the championship team, which was about how you build high performance team. So that was a period of great reinvention, if you like, because when you are broken, it's a good opportunity to take a pause and say what has gone wrong and how you want to reconstruct your life. So it was very interesting. I was reading something, and my son actually said it to me. There are good days and there are bad days, but the bad days is okay. So you are dissociating the experience of the day with yourself. Because the experience of the day and the skill is how do we manage our inner experience. How we manage, because at one time when we were young boys, as I was with the LSC, if I was a fellow of the Society of Actuaries or Institute like Patrick Poon or Stephen Wong, I will be happy for the rest of my life. That's what you tell yourself, because that is a key to a good job, a key to a good life. And what else do I want? I want a BMW. I got more than BMW, right? But of course I got all that. And you know that the answer is not so straightforward. So this is what this discussion about, okay? So this was a public story, right? So I go back to the thing again. So the next, okay, I told you two crises because Corinne Chua was very good the way they compiled the question. Can you give me some real life story? So I then went regional, right? Regional. I from 94 to 2000, Singapore was very successful. My boss Mark Tucker was in town, and then we built Prudential Asia. I have a chauffeur. This is remarkable for a 34-year-old guy have a chauffeur with a Jaguar 4-liter for a small town, right? In Singapore, riding around. And then I asked myself, this is a crazy thing, because you should be very happy, right? But then I say, then giving speeches, about sales, and of course, that's why I say you must know yourself. What means something to you, right? But for me, at the age of 37, 38, I said, this can't be the rest of my life, right? And I was invited to go to Hong Kong. I didn't particularly want to go there because there was another set of issues about that. And I was meeting a new woman whom I was falling in love with. So I didn't want to go disturb that, right? So then I was approaching 40, and I'll talk about life stages later on, right? I began to not flourishing. My romantic life was good, but my work life was not doing what I want. Just imagine, I was treated as an expatriate. So I got a Swiss apartment paid for, and I got this Jaguar, right? And that should be an epitome of what most young actuaries from a poor village would want to. I got that. But I realized that this cannot sustain, for the next 25 years, because I peaked too early. Whether I peaked too early, you can argue about that. But I was not getting the thing. And one of the best things I did looking back in the last 21 years was that I decided to leave the Prudential and then to go to Columbia for 2 years, actually 18 months, to do a master's in psychology and learn a lot of things. And I look back, I say that was the refreshing of my intellectual base. Because when I read a lot. And then by the time I was in my early 30s, I was very busy, because sales is so important. You're running around. And I neglected that personal part and also the actuarial part. I could carry the story because yeah, but I neglected that. But that 18 months was such a powerful refresh, right? When I came back, I was in the world of psychology, and I learned a lot of things which helped me when I went to NTUC Income. So I think the 40s one was a burnout issue of picking, and I experienced it. But this does not mean that it will happen to you when you reach 40, yeah. But it happened to many people, but doesn't mean that it will happen to you, yeah. Okay, so that was the story behind the story, yeah. So I'm adopting. If you all are old enough, you'll remember a movie called The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles. Yeah, Jeremy Irons and Meryl Streep were in it, and they were doing a filming, right, of the story of a French lieutenant with a woman played by Jeremy Irons and Meryl Streep. But then the story was also about the studio when they're filming, the actors and actress line. So there are two stories. So in a way, I'm telling this public story, but I'm telling you the private story now. So the private story continue, yeah. So then I was in Colombia. I can show you some photos which I was in multiple country going regionals. Then my interest in psychology is another presentation. I won't go there. My interest in psychology, which is now very important in the interest I have and in the systemic problems I have. But that's another story, yeah. But that's important because how you join the dots. Yeah, ask me about joining the dots. Yeah, and this was in SHL, so we won't talk about that. Okay, then I went to income, and I'm not talking about income now. Another crisis. So this is my fourth crisis now. I went into a public debate, right, with Mr. Tan Kin Lian, and Singaporeans will know how big a figure is Tan Kin Lian. He ran for presidency, okay, of Singapore, and I think all the senior actuaries will know who he is. He ran NTUC Income for 30 years, and I'll give full credit for him. He really built a cooperative, but he disagreed with me on the bonus policy for income products because I and my team don't think that it's sustainable, the reversionary bonus. And this was in April 2008. Of course, the financial crisis occurred in October, November 2008. And we were right to move most of the bonuses to terminal bonuses. And that was difficult because every day you wake up, you see what's in the papers, you're not sure what it's going to be. You see? And income is a very important institution in Singapore, and the politics. But I was well supported by my board. But clearly the issues were complex. Yeah. So that was my fourth crisis. Yeah. So the third crisis led me to psychology, but the fourth crisis led me to creating the transformation program for income, which is a cultural revolution and orange revolution, because we really give it impetus. So I think, actually, I was talking to my wife when we were walking yesterday. I said, he said that actually, as she knew me, every downturn, there's an upturn. So maybe there's a silver lining in the cloud. My latest crisis was 2 years ago. Yeah? After I win the presidency of the IFOA, you would have thought, right? You would have thought, if you have become for a boy from Singapore, that you're IFOA president, what else do you need, right? You're independent financially, you've got a beautiful wife and 2 young kids, and now you got IFOA. But I got into a slight crisis. When was this? Maybe I can stop sharing the screen now, and then so I had a crisis, and the crisis was after I win the election in February 2019. My 60th birthday is in May 2019. Yeah. So in a March, April 2019, when I woke up, I still have my journal writing. I write diary for the last 2 years every day. And the word wake up with desolation, sense of desolation, the word desolation, and meaninglessness, you see. Is this all? Is this all, right? It's interesting. I said that we came back very happy, you know. I won the election, it's significant, I wanted it. But how come I'm waking up with this feeling, you see? Because you're not in flow, you're not in flourishing. And it happened to me, and I suspect it happened to a lot of people based on what I read. So it's not uncommon. You can have everything in the world, but can feel big cup. And I got many friends from YPO and WPO who are very wealthy people. And from the line of sharing and questioning, all of them have the same problems. The money thing doesn't solve everything. of course, we still want it. Okay, that's beside the point now, right? So this flourishing thing, and I had to get back to a space, but then a lot of it is about purpose and a sense of self, and you can call it psychological framing, or you can call it spirituality, about purpose, and that is also a function of age. I was knowing that I'm going to cross 60. Yeah, this 2 years ago, cross 60. I was not afraid of crossing 60 mentally, but my system knows it. You see, I'm crossing 60, and that is quite powerful. Then I talked to a couple of people, and my mentor, I have a very powerful mentor. I talked to people, and one of the mentors is quite senior in life. He said that he had the same problem when he said 60 was difficult for him and quite a lot of his friends when he crossed it. But now I am in this space. We can talk about what that means. But that was my 5 crises. But the crisis for age 61, 62, that's 2 years ago, led me to a period of reflection and again reinvention. So a lot of things. There's a baby in the room. There's a bit of reflection and reinvention, and over the last 2 years, I believe I've grown. But again, never be too sure. And must be humble. Must be humble. It's not something I'm very good at, but must be humble. And I would like to say also, whatever I say to you, what's my story? I'm not saying that it is the answer. I'm sharing my story to you. It found what worked, but it's not always clear. So for me, I'm still in a journey of discovery. So I've set the context now. So now, okay. Okay, from the line of question, I have tilted my presentation of managing life stages and crises, right? But there's still a group, there are no group who says that I want to become an actuary. Most of you now want to get career promotion. I think that was the career and promotion. So there's a second section on how to get career promotion and also politics in office. But we can also tackle that in a Q&A. So I want to go to the stages of life. Yeah. So we are good. Yeah, we are good now. Okay. So I'm going to talk about stages of life, and I think you really got to know yourself. You got to know yourself. Purpose and meaning and personal brand is quite important to 30-40% of us. And do I mean that it's not important 60? No, I don't mean that. Because some of us will take this seriously and go and write it down, but others may do it another way. So because all of us are different, you see, that's why knowing yourself is very important. All of us have different biases and preferences. Our present bias and our confirmation bias, our personality preferences are all different. So whatever I say or whatever books I read sort of inspired me. It might inspire 30-40% of you, but not all of you. Yeah, but that's okay. You go and network and go and find what works for you. Then we'll talk about journeys of a leader, and then for those who are my age, we can talk about the new long life, how to design the next 30 years. Yeah. So I'm in this quest of how to design my next 30 years. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Okay. Okay. So just now I gave you a crisis. This is to answer the questions that Corinne has. What about you? Do you have crisis or jobs? Because say they let us share. These were my main 5 one. Conflict in 2008 is the income one. The last one is the latest one. And of course, you wouldn't be able to sense it when you meet me, right? Yeah, but that is how we keep our private and personal journeys private and personal, right? Okay, but I felt that following every crisis, this one I will give credit to my wife. I had a significant rebound in terms of reinvention, right? Reinvention. I think the last one is very significant because I'm doing quite a bit of reflection, and this talk helps me to integrate some of the thinking. And I will take some side stories as we go along. So we go back to the main story here. So the problem we are trying to solve is the actuary young student in LSE wants to be successful. Becoming an actuary will be the end of his problem, right? I think most of us believe that you become an actuary will be the end, but actually it's the beginning of the problem. Now actually you think that if I'm the chief actuary, it will be the end of the problem, or the chief marketing officer, or if I get the golf club which you wanted but your company don't want to give to you, it will be the end of your problem, or the CEO-ship or the car. I don't know what you want. but it'll be nice, but it's the beginning of another set of problems. Okay, so once you have that frame of mind, your handling of it will be better. Your handling of it, I think, ultimately, for me, I think it's about a flourishing life. Right? You can have a life of purpose and meaning. To have a flourishing life requires skill and mastery. And mastery, and that is a work for masters, and it's a lifelong work. It's a work on ourselves. Work on ourselves. And so, whether you like it or not, for me, it goes into your inner world, your inner experience. Because even when you get a car, your feeling is inner. It's how you respond to it, how you do good, the purpose of your life. In the last 2 months, 2 years. 2 days ago, Chieh, actuary in Malaysia, 61 years old, passed away in Prudential Malaysia, ex staff of mine. And 1 month ago, Kok, Chief Executive of NTUC Learning Hub, all over the papers, 53, Brigadier General, collapsed and passed away after cycling. Then there's Mark Toh, there's Peter Song, all my age. So you suddenly realize that actually you need to have a right perspective. But if you're young, this perspective will not be real, and you shouldn't beat yourself up for it. But it's good to be aware of perspective. Then you can have a higher level of being in yourself. We can talk about that a bit later. So I want to bring some science and some philosophy into stages of life. But we can talk about promotion later, about how to get promotion and how to win in a conflict and negotiation. But that one is lower level. This one is higher level a bit, right? So Erikson is a famous psychologist, and there are many of them. Oliver Sacks, the fourth person, is a musicologist and a guy who wrote many books on migraine and psychological dysfunctionality. I will talk about maybe Oliver Sacks first. Oliver Sacks wrote a book called Gratitude, and one chapter is called Mercury. Mercury's chemical element is 80, and he wrote his book in his 7th decade, and he died at age 81. And he said that the 7th decade was the most beautiful decade, right? And he could be biased because he was saying about how the previous stages of your life was about building. But now you look back, the vistas is different, because your vistas is no longer climbing. Your vista is going back. And he says it's a very rich area. With that, I go into Erikson's life stages. I'm doing quite a bit of psychology here, but not too much. Here, Erikson's I don't want to go into before 12, but you can tell how important it is to your self-confidence and your sense of autonomy as a child. Your first 7 years largely shape a lot of you, shape a lot of your fundamental disposition. But it doesn't mean that you cannot reinvent or recreate yourself. And I want to pick on 2 words here: identity and stagnation. Okay, one of the things we do as teenagers is that we form a strong sense of identity of ourselves, and identity gives us identification, and a lot of issues we have is due to our identification to our self-image, our personality, our needs. But that identification is not permanent, right? If you're spiritual, you'll know that nothing is permanent. It is your choice to decide what identification you want. Of course, all of us here have an identification to be a successful actuary, and I'm not asking you to change that. But I think you want more than that, right? So it's the identification of what plus. The one on generativity and stagnation I thought was interesting because there could be a sense those who are in the mid-40s, plateauing, over 60s, and also my neighbors who are 80s. Every day is the same. I can see every day is the same. And how do you get your life to be flourishing and engaging? So I think that's important. And as important, and I remember a seminar I went to in Colorado about 15 years ago, and the lady he says, Chieh, you're going back, you are doing this, doing that. I'm going back, I see an arid desert, you know, because I spent my savings on this course. This course is NLP programming, neuro-linguistic. And where I go back to is my one room, which lives alone, and it's one of despair. And I'm not sure how to cheer up, right? But that is the nature of life, right? So nature of life. How do we manage our intimidation and our resources? Yeah? So preparing yourself for different stages, psychologically, financially, and relationship-wise is very important, because the more resources you have, the more independence you have. What they call buffers, Jim calling buffers. So you have buffers, you don't have financial worries, you don't have financial buffers. Then you got to worry about health, then you got to worry about relationship. So relationship, health, and finance, if that is taken care of, that is about purpose, right, and community. But if you don't get your first three there, then then it's a question of level. You need to get a minimum level, right? So this is about preparation, and some of the preparation is psychological about preparing for your next phase, yeah, because it will come, yeah. Okay, the Indians, Hindus has 4 ashram, and this is very powerful, huh? Most of the Confucius also has it. I couldn't find the Confucius one, which I had as a quote, but I couldn't find the document. But the first 10-20 years is about learning, but the next 20-30 years is about household, career, and wealth, right? But that's where most of the traps come in, is money, power, and sex, and prestige, right? But when you come to retiring, one of the issues for retirees, especially those who are very successful, who are CEOs or C-suite, is the giving up of the perks of power, right? And the recognition. And that some handle it very well, but not all, right? And then for the Hindus, they have a last stage about renunciation and enlightenment for Buddhists, and I suspect for Christians also have that, Muslims. So these are, but to be aware of these stages is helpful, because things are not linear, yeah. And the digital revolution and longevity is actually disrupting some of these patterns, right? So I'm going to recommend you 2 books, one by Hermia Ibarra towards the end, on identity, and the last one is A New Long Life. Because suddenly, in Malaysia, you have your CPF originally, when my EPF, when my father was alive, EPF was 55, right? Because first 20 years, you study 20 to 55, you work 55 to 70, or 65, you pass away. Most people died between 65 to 70, my father's time, right? My grandfather's time. But now it's not, you know, it's 80 to 90. How are you going to do that, right? So that's important. Maybe I think but I suppose let's jump straight into it. You say, okay, Confucius had the same thing, right? So, but then you just, you can ask me, Suee, so what is, what's in a nutshell? In a nutshell, and I try to put things in a nutshell because what it means, there's a psychological process. I put down as 3A. Eventually, you have no choice to accept the crisis you are in. And then you undertake what I call psychology of adjustment. You got to adjust. And then if you can adjust and find a space, you break out for reinvention, right? So you don't be identified with the crisis, right? Yeah, observe the crisis, yeah. So in other words, there is a person who is part of a crisis, that's you, but there is an observer self, which is also you. You can observe the crisis as an observer, and then manage this out. So acceptance, adjustment, achievement, and you can have resources and psychological reframing. There are many tools for this. I have, say, 2 very basic books, right? Bertrand Russell, Conquest of Happiness, as well as Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, are something I read when I was a young boy. And it was my foundational blocks, right? You can have Marcus Aurelius meditations and all that. And having mentors and friends are good. For me, it works to have deep friends, right? Deep friends. Friends who can talk to about your personal life and your private life, yeah, and your tribulations. Of course, you got one social friends as well. And I'm very blessed with mentors. I still got 2 or 3 mentors. One of them is somebody I engage. and she's what I call her wizard. Okay, so that is my way of coping. And on the bottom left square, you really must know about yourself, right? It's really not about tasks, it's about your response to, you can read book on negotiation, read book on how to get promoted, and that's useful because that's one level of activity. But understand yourself. And that's why for me, psychological and spirituality is important, and reflection is important. And more lately, I'm more into journaling and meditation. So that's for crisis and burnout. This would be very obvious, right? Books, music, pets, interest, right? But you got to take it in a serious way, because this is for burnouts rather than crisis, burnouts. I need to see how are we doing in terms of time? We should, we're ending at 12, right? We should go to, I quite like to do the questions because then I can then go to questions which are more. So I'm going to share now. Okay, I will see because I have given you a sense, right? But I didn't a sense of what the story is. I can't go to this. I have a pack of slides, which is not about. This is a pack of slides about. No, come. Honey, you can continue doing that. It's okay. It's okay. I got a pair of slides about sort of getting promoted and problems in the workplace, but those are sort of second order in this context. But we can talk about that later. And I was eager to talk about takeaways, but I maybe I think it might be a good time to stop the share and ask and I look at the chat and maybe Logan, how are the people feeling?
So far, no. I had a lot of messages earlier about bandwidth and all that, but no questions specifically so far for you. But we can ask some pre-prepared questions.
Okay. Anyone want to ask a question? Bryce, can I pick on you, Bryce? Because I know that you are.
Yeah, sure.
You are a courageous young man.
Let me just get my camera. I was actually thinking of a question of how do you know when to take the next career step up and weigh that up against your personal life commitments as well?
Okay, that's an interesting
Did that come through?
Okay, I can give you basic answers, but the deeper answer requires much more in-depth, right? The basic answer,
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, I think Benjamin Franklin did give you write down the pro and cons, right? And then you mark. Write down all the pro and cons and then mark. But I think there's also other processes where your mentor can take you through discovery about, you see, eventually it has to do with discovery of yourself and what it means, right? Because there are obvious things like financial consequences of moving. If I take that job, my income is lower. Okay, so that one you got to calibrate yourself, and opportunity. Then you weigh again purpose. Ultimately, it's about your sense of flourishing, right? If you move that, will you be happier? And also, it is not going to be passive. And there are many approaches to it. So the new long life and the 100-year life try to tell us that our job career is not going to be the same as last time. It's the iron rice bowl. I joined Keppel at 25, I retire at 65. There's no such thing now. And for actuaries, I don't think there's such thing. Prepare for change. And I have an easy frame for myself. Be an agent of change, and not a recipient of change, because I find it easier to be an agent of change. But not everyone is proactive that way. Some of us are go with the flow type. So that's why you still got to go back to know yourself, you see. And some people can accommodate change by not opposing it, but they can go with the flow. And you can't, it's not that they are without principle, right? Because it's their nature, they're team worker, they are mediators. But if your person is, you're an achiever, you're a challenger, which is more me, you will stick your ground, you see? And that's why you must know yourself. then the nature of your question could be, let's say hypothetically, is one company in a particular role move to another company in another role. I would also look at the people, right? For me, the culture is quite important.
Absolutely.
The culture and then the purpose. The purpose of the organization, if the conversation is all about maximizing sales and profits, and 95% are, let's not BS about this. So income was in a sense quite a godsend for me, and so you got to weigh yourself about what your self narrative is. But I don't think you can be too perfect about this either. Ultimately, you got to trust yourself what is good, right? So there is a basic level, then know yourself, and then the meta level, does it involve a relocation, likelihood of success? You can actually plot it down, and the answers will be different, right? It will be different. Okay, any other questions?
Suee, there are 3 questions. I can group them in 2 categories for you. So we have 2 questions from Jeremiah and Arjun, which are slightly related. So Arjun has asked about periods of boredom and how you handle it, and Jeremiah asks about how to find your passion for your career if you have lost it.
Wow, this is shame, right? Okay, Arjun, how you handle boredom? I have a big problem with boredom, yeah. Big problem with boredom. So there are different ways to handle it. So if you go and I just passed the books I read at age 16 to my daughter 2 days ago. One of them was I read at age 16. I passed to her. One of them is Conquest of Happiness, and there's a chapter called On Boredom. I think on boredom. And also Portraits of Memory. So boredom. So boredom is redundancy. Is actually a good thing. Because in boredom, you could be doing the same thing again and again in reflection. One of the problems of digital is that you're not bored and you are always distracted. So you want to go into some educationalists argue that teenagers and young people should have a lot of free time for them to figure out what they need to do, rather than give them cramming, because the mind will grow. But okay, so a bit of spiritual response to boredom is useful. How can you be comfortable staying with yourself without going to a nightclub or F1, right? Whatever you are stimulate you, but you still need a nightclub or F1 or the dinner party because we are not monks, right? We are not monks, so you still need to do that. But ability to psychological handling of boredom is useful. But the other thing is that if you don't want to be bored, there are a lot of things to do. There are a lot of things, especially with internet. There's so many things to do. You just need to have basic income, right? You can learn swimming, you can learn music, you can learn dancing, you can go for reading books. You don't have books, you can do bird watching. I got no sort of camera, editing, or curate a library. There's so many things to do. Where are you bored? You see, but you see, there's a personality type thing again. Because for me, I will go that way or do that way. But some people say that, but other type might be respond differently. So self-awareness, or go and attend a program on personality types. Why are you bored? Then you say, oh, but I'm not interested. Okay, I have friends who are very senior. One of them come to mind, and he's very rich. We're talking about somebody with, say, 25 million Singapore in his bank, right? He's retired. He said, I have no interest, Chieh. I have no interest. So I said, only travel and eating, but eating also not very, but I have no interest. It is, but you can cultivate interest. And he got a couple of directorships, a few directorships, but yeah. But so different. So actually, maybe there's a clue for us, right? It's quite good. So Bertrand Russell has a book, has a chapter called Impersonal Interest. Our happiness cannot just be identified with this and this alone. The wider our interest is, the more focus we have on external people, subjects, and ideas, we are less a prisoner of our small world, you see. So get interested in the big world. But then you can also say, but I'm not interested. Then we have a systems problem. Then we need to have a one-to-one chat. Because then you find cuts get started. Because my advice is that there's no reason for you to be bored. And the other reason that if you all have the skill to stay with the boredom, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Some people can sit with themselves on their own for hours, a day, and enjoy the state of being, right? Enjoy the state of being is fairly meditative. Okay. So, Arjun, Savane-san, okay? That's how I handle it. I have periods of boredom. So I have a phrase which I tell my mentor. I say that I must lose myself in action, lest I wither in despair. So I need to find things to do. When I find things to do, when I'm very busy like now, I then envy the periods when I'm a big chunk of time. So 2017 to 2019, I did a lot of courses, 7 or 8 courses. Partly because I need to be engaged, right? And they were wonderful, right? On philosophy, on digital transformation, on governance, on swimming, on yoga, God knows what. So there's no need to be bored. If you are from Malaysia, Singapore, there's so many things to do, right? Okay, how do you find passion for your career if you have lost it? I think it's a question of framing. It's also, and I think people do lose it. Culture and culture can be toxic. Culture can be toxic, and then so you got to be very practical, right? You play with the rules, but up to some point, when you can be free, you'll live long, right? Then you make sure you find something else to do. But your best insurance policy is to get yourself psychologically prepared, financially prepared, fiscally prepared. Relationship, the financially one is not to be underestimated. You save money, man, guys, save money, because that so ultimately, even if you don't have a job, you can still go and do your hobbies, right? That's the de minimis, right? So if you lose your passion, but if you can't stand it, you leave. But actually, the problem with financial services, the pay is actually very good. And most of us in this room joined the profession because we wanted a rewarding job intellectually and financially. So let's not be shy about this. So that's important. So it's a trade-off. But there comes a point where things it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. But then the key is preparing for transitions. There are many good books on this. What color is your parachute and all that, right? So you can. So for me, I will get resources, talk to people, and see what their game plan is. I got many friends who are into this space. You talk to them, and they recommended Multiple Identities by Ibarra, which is a good book. But the books are books, right? They give you conceptual, but ultimately you still got to live with yourself. Books are books, mentors are mentors. Even your lover is your lover, right? But you got to live with yourself. So therefore, yourself is very important to yourself, right? I mean, okay.
We have another question about stagnation, but then I'd like to move on to questions about change. How do we find confidence and courage to make a change, because we are very used to our comfort zone? And another related question is, once you make that change, how do you persevere in that path of change?
Who asked that first question?
The first question is by Patrick Chieh. The second one is by Jeremy Ngok.
Okay, Patrick, can you come on, come live? I miss seeing your face. Patrick, what is your question?
No, I'm saying that a lot of people actually have lost jobs this year, last year. And sometimes, circumstances force them to try and find something new, but they are still want to remain where they are comfortable with. So it's a question of what kind of advice can you tell these people that?
Can you ask the question in your first pronoun? You want to ask me a question for yourself?
Yeah. So okay, I think myself example, right? So I'm one of those few who lost their job owing to COVID and circumstances, and currently, trying to find a job. So I'm using myself as a metaphor. There'll be people some.
No. But you see, because you use the word comfort zone, right? You are in a comfort zone.
So comfort zone is like what we are comfortable with, right? So we are actuaries. We do actual stuff for me, but
so because I was
there's so many actuaries.
Okay, I can give a general answer, right? I can give a general answer, but I was going to go into a space about your beliefs about yourself, you see? Because if somebody says I cannot do it, but that is something you believe about yourself, right? So you got to change your belief. You got to change your belief. Yeah. So that was the first. But the second one, for those who, but the reality is that there is unemployment. There is unemployment, and then the intellectual answer, which is not very useful, is that you apply and then get yourself prepared and invest in yourself in learning, right? That would be the intellectual answer, because what choice have you got? Yeah, and in fact, that is, but to enrich the answers, it goes into a space of personal will and personal self-declaration, right? One is that you got to accept the fact that the job is not yours anymore. And the second thing is that you got to suddenly adjust to it. So there are short-term things you need to do to make sure things run. Because short-term, there's no income, but you make things run. But then what is your next strategy, right? The next strategy, that is the rich part, you see. What's the next strategy? You can go into despair and self-pity, which is all right, but be careful about that, because then it's a question of your own inner strength, about mindfulness. Because even when you have the job, things can happen to you which are even more disastrous, right? Death, relationship breakdown, or whatever, right? So you need to, and I cannot be too confident in saying this. I don't know what will happen in the next 30 days. No one knows, right? What can happen, right? But the point is that there is this element of uncertainty. But when you are in it, I feel a spirit of mindfulness and meditative quality or religious response about purpose is useful, because then you are able to lift yourself above the perspective, right? Because you don't want to see yourself in a valley, but if you see that life is a series of mountains and valleys, and you happen to a valley, then it's different from seeing yourself in the valley. Yeah? So you want to lift your perspective up. And then, so the framing is important, you see. And the framing, so a lot of it comes to framing. And all this, if you acquire this in good times and bad times, and have a more constant state of flourishing, right? I'm still learning how not to react to when my keys are lost. I mean, or my paper is lost. Why I get so excited? Right? Actually, there's no need to be getting excited, because it'll appear. You print it again. You know what I mean? But because that is the mechanical part of human personality, and that is governing our life. Yeah. So we need to be relaxed about that, and there's that. But at a more practical level, you may have to ask the question, what is your proposition to employers, right? And at some time, you're not going to be so laku, whether you like it or not. Over time, because there are more people coming out, even from time to time, we are not so laku, right? Laku means not in so demand. It's fucking supply and demand. As you go higher up, the worse it becomes. Some of us are blessed, with high. Some of us are not so. But then I find that Steve Jobs' advice quite good. And I also don't want to overclaim for myself. A lot of things I learned, and I think, and he went and studied calligraphy, and it turned out to be very important in his life. It's just follow, in this time you have, do something which could, whatever you're passionate in, you really must be passionate about it, because it has, I have a feeling that you follow your passion. It sort of works for me. I follow my passion, a lot of things became useful, even a lot of things I do now. And to a certain extent, I'm in a fairly optimistic stage, but because I'm sort of thinking what I want to do after IVOA and all that. So some few things have sort of emerged. But I'm sort of ready for a life of greater passivity as well, without needing to over control it. So that's all I can do. But Patrick, we can have a private chat anytime. Okay, anybody else?
And then Jeremy asked about persevering through change. Change is tough. What helped you persevere?
Jeremy, what helped me persevere? Me, I can answer you straight. You see, my personality type is one of thriving on challenges. My person, it's not thriving on no change. So I just did a psychological test. It comes out to say I need change. So I will see challenges as necessary for it to be interesting, right? If it's not a challenge, I make it a challenge. So I find that easier. But a different question is that if you're okay, those are sort of work challenges. If relationships are difficult, what do you do? So you got to be more specific. Change is tough, But changing, okay, so like say digital, okay, say for instance digital change in your company, okay, that's a good one, right? They got some strategy people from McKinsey or whoever come in, or head office, come up with digital projects, right? So okay, this is a good one, right? So you really so you got to go to your brand. We didn't do brand. What is your brand, right? Jeremy, what's your brand? Is Jeremy about accuracy, or Jeremy about reliability, or Jeremy about innovation, right? You must know what your brand is, what your offer is. Right? Let's say your brand is that you are very good in coping to change. Then you must acquire additional knowledge, right, on platform economics, on data science, or drones, or whatever, so you can participate. So these are the small. So you want to be half a foot ahead, ma. So you got to invest. I speak this generally in conferences. Right? You got to invest in domains which are adjacent to life insurance or pension, behavioral science, climate science. They're going to come up. Investments. You got to be interested. Yeah, because knowledge, what you learn within IFOA is going to be dated very quickly. But then it's still core, and IFOA is changing very fast. So they're introducing a fellowship in banking, right, and climate science and all that. So you got to do that. Behavioral science, because even actually in 30 years time, I do not know how insurance company will look like, although we change very slowly, because our job will be a function on how insurance companies and banks will be organized, so a lot of things will change. But your job is to make yourself your offer good. But to make your offer good, it can't be the same thing. I got a brother-in-law who is very able to cope and change. Every time a big technology company wants change, he will be appointed a change ambassador. And he was not about technology. It's how he facilitate change conversations, which actually always mean to reduction in manpower. So that was it, and did it for quite a long time, right? So all of us have different positioning. So to answer your question, Jeremy, got to ask yourself, what is my positioning, right? And we are all very different. There are some actuaries who like routine stuff and predictable stuff, and a lot of us, and that's fine. But for them, you can continue to do that. But I think you also need to look up and look at what's going around you. I think a bit out of the box thinking is helpful, because change is happening too fast. But then there's also another controversial question: is it really happening that fast? It may not be as fast as the way we put it, but when it happens, it can happen very quickly. Okay, I think we are at 12 o'clock, so we are sort of closing. If that's the case, if anything, I would like to look at my final slides to see whether there's any takeaway I want to share. What about that? Logan, is that good?
Yep, there's two more questions, but
no, but we need to end at 12, right? Okay, what are the questions? Okay.
One is about your spiritual journey and whether there's a risk of being crisis once you have reached a certain level in your spiritual self. And another question from Jeremiah about going back to 1992, what would you do differently knowing what you know now?
Okay, I'm trying to get my chat thing up. Okay. Wait, chat. Okay. Okay, I'll do the 1992 one first. Okay, the 1992 one, I ignored. This is the agency issue, right? There was the CEO, and then there's a head of sales, and there's a CFO, which is me, CFO and actuary, deputy GM and actuary. There's something called role suction. We got primary roles, secondary, tertiary roles. I play my primary role immediately, you see, because if I'm wise, if you learn some of the Chinese way of transformation, okay, this is oversimplification. Sometimes transformation, you remain silent. This is, for those who are in Mandarin, is a Gaoshou transformation. You actually don't do anything by transforming, by don't do anything. Okay, but that is a different talk. Okay, but in the 1992, I should let maybe Trevor and the head of sales to do most of it, rather than myself. You see. But my impatience to get the pricing and the costing right, and I was clear about it, was a strength and a weakness. So in individual meetings and in bigger meetings, I could take a secondary role. I'm doing a bit of that more skillfully now. Because sometimes you shouldn't spearhead the thing which is most important to you. Yeah, but you must still pay attention to it. So 1992, I was a young man, 33 years old, 32 years old, and MAS 306 has been compliant. I was actually, so I could have framed a lot of negotiations, discussions differently, and maybe I come across, not maybe, maybe I did come across arrogant and all that, right? So these are my developmental points now. Okay, and what's the second question on spirituality? Because that's more personal. What's the question about?
Okay, if I read out the question directly, how far have you reached in your spiritual journey? Like you have so far, is there a risk of you that you be in crisis once you reach top of your spiritual self? That's verbatim.
No, this is too cheap. Anyway, I'm far from the top. I'm actually at a very small foothill in the Himalayan mountain of spirituality. Right? And don't go around saying Chieh is talking about spirituality. I'm not. I'm just saying it's actually the boundary between psychology. But okay. But basically, okay. Maybe I ask you to can you watch this video, the interview, because none of us in this room will say that Lee Kuan Yew is a no-nonsense man. You may disagree with his style. He is a man of substance. Right? He was interviewed by the Anglican Benedictine monk, Father Franciscan. Just go to YouTube. Lee Kuan Yew meditation interview. Yeah, Ng Kok Song was the CEO of GIC, a government investment corporation, and he was there because he introduced him. And Lee Kuan Yew has been doing meditation. You should watch the thing for etc. And Lee Kuan Yew is not going to tell you go and believe in this, believe in that, right? But he said that the monk asked him about spirituality. He said, no, I say to relax. Then Lee Kuan Yew, he said he's not doing it for spirituality, it's for then he said to find peace, and then and also to find my inner self. Right? He used the word inner self. Lee Kuan Yew used the word inner self. Right? And this monk was so skillful. Right? He said that actually that would be the definition of spirituality, right? So what is our inner self, right? So there is this Jaguar thing, the CEO thing, the golf club thing. What is the inner self one thing? And who is the inner self? And is the inner self there? Okay, even now, is it my true self talking, or is it an identity called Chieh, who wants a good reputation amongst ASM members? Okay, I'm just, but I think it's a lot of overlap. But finding your true inner self is a journey, and I can't claim that you are at the mountain and you are at the foothills, because the moment the house on fire, the house something lost, or somebody walk in, or suddenly you win a lottery or lose some money, you're completely different already. Yeah. So I wouldn't claim, but I'm learning every day. Okay. So with that, what do you think, Logan? I think we should draw it to a close, huh?
Yeah, I think you can give your further thoughts.
I just want to share my screen again. No, this is the wrong one. This is the wrong one. Just give me a moment, I want the one which is a tale of two stories. Yeah, because I think okay. So this one we will go fast, we talk about that. This is the one more for the 30 to 40s, but okay, I think Jim Collins is quite good. I think good to great. We talk about larger purpose. And for those who in their 50s and 60s, which are quite a few of you, I think this is quite good. And I'm interviewing the speaker on the 26th. Actually, I knew the other speaker because it's written by Andrew Scott and Linda Gretton, but Linda Gretton can't speak. So this lady, so it's free, so you can come and see. This one, you can get it from any book. So this is all it. So So maybe as a takeaway, self-awareness and understanding transition is necessary. This is a takeaway. Knowing yourself, your inner self, I think is important. And we didn't do much time out. What's your purpose and brand? Because I do write about myself, what I want to be, what I stand for, and I find it quite useful. So if I can do a very quick one, can you see this one? Can you see this one? No, you can't. I got to stop share and share again. Okay, I share. Okay. This is something I wrote in 1994. I would not be very strong on item 3 and 4. Yeah. Okay, this is April 1994. I just attended a course, right? So I tried to do that brand. So 94 is quite a big year for me, and I do that. Yeah, I do that. So building I find that is helpful about building a brand. But we can talk about that next time. Okay. I think the takeaway. You can see the screen, right? I said, okay. You see, I'm a book person. Yeah. So I like books. Yeah, and I like now YouTube. So there's a huge resource out there, right? But not all of us like books, and not all of us like YouTube. Some of us like talking. So you must find your own networks. But I found the first 4 books were foundational. 7 Habits, if you can have the 7 Habits, you live. Because 7 Habits has a lot of things like sharpening the saw and communication, and I suspect spiritual side as well. Yeah, Seeds of Greatness definitely has spiritual side. Yeah, so all this, but this is a how-to book, right? A how-to book. The last 2 books is for people in the 50s, because I saw there were people in the 50s in the audience who my recommendation is that we shouldn't start thinking about retiring, but you're going to a different phase. I think Patrick Poon does it very well, because I think at the age, I don't know, Patrick was your early 70s now. He's probably early 70s, and he's probably, we can't hear you, but he's running chair of businesses and all that. But all of us got to find our own niche. Yeah? I don't know. Okay, I think I'm going to bring this to a close. I was wondering whether for those who do not mind, you can on your video so we can take a picture. Okay, Kim Singh, good to see you. Martin, good to see you. Martin, are you in London or in Hong Kong?
I'm in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I'm very impressed if you're in London.
No.
Hi, Louis, are you in Taiwan? Louis Hang, are you in Taiwan?
Yes.
You're in Taiwan.
In Taiwan.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
I was in mute.
So good to see all my friends here. And hey, Robert, you're in China, yeah? Ni hao. Very good.
Yes, we in Shanghai.
Okay. Robert, I recognize Aiza. Colin Pak Shong, very good. Patrick Chia, Martin, Bryce Shepherd. Jeffrey Burton, is that the Jeffrey Burton from Tokyo? Jeffrey,
from Prudential days originally as well.
No, can you put your screen down a bit? Are you the same Jeffrey? Yes, you're the same guy, right? We know each other quite well.
Yeah,
right?
The same guy. We worked together all those years ago.
I can see. Okay, so that's great. It's really wonderful. Azim, you don't need all this, Azim. You have everything under control, right? Okay, I go to the next screen. Zainal, my good friend Zainal, I just mentioned you as a thought leader the other day. Dalila, how are you, Dalila? It's wonderful. Next time we should have team. Arjun, good to see you, Arjun. Xing Yang, Dalila, I recognize. Angelina Lai, you are very active in Facebook, in LinkedIn. I recognize the name. Arjun, I better take some screenshots. Darren, Zainal, you are a senior actuary, man. Can you tell me any comments you'd like to make?
I think, Chieh, I think basically like you say, you need a purpose in life, and these days, I mean, I'm also a retirement actuary, and there's no basic solution. It's not like before, whereby you set a date whereby you retire and that's it. You have to work for life. The question is what you want to work for. What do you want to achieve? That's basically, I think, what each of us need to actually look for.
That's very well put. Zainal, you're 65, right? Patrick, maybe you can share a few words. Patrick, Patrick, you got to unmute yourself. Patrick Poon, you got to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yes, President. I think we all actuaries are very intelligent person. So I think we have the ability to deal with any crises. But I think the key for my life is always build trust around you. To take sacrifices, always the first one to give out something. Then people would do together and then you can achieve it. So very important to understand that the more you give, the more you get. And at my stage of my life, well, my business is handled by my children. So they make the money, I donate them all. This is my plan. And to help particularly the profession, because I think we have a very important profession in the world. I think we can actually help the world to progress. And let's work together.
Okay, I think I can give a bit of context here. Zainal and I are same generation, right? But in Malaysia, there were two icons at that time. In fact, there was another guy called Handa, but I never met him. He was Great Eastern, but he's not Malaysian. The first Malaysian president was Steve Wong, you see. But Patrick Poon, okay, I don't know who was first, and then there's a Waddingham, which I all met recently. So it's a joy to me to meet Waddingham after 35 years, in London. It was amazing, right? But there's a lot of stories. But Patrick Poon was an interesting one because I knew he was from AIA, you see, and he was not a Malaysian. I just looked up quickly. He was the second president. The first president was Steve Wong. I knew. I went straight to see Steve Wong there and see Patrick. I met Zainal in Prudential later. So these are the early legends, Patrick Poon, Steve Wong, and then Alex came later. And then Zainal, myself, and V. Govin are the first British fellows. I can tell you Malaysia is amazing. I'll tell you this. For both the SOA and the FOA and Australia, because I maybe want to write this book with, okay, I must give thanks to Corinne Chua and Marie Lee for helping with the slides and all the coordination. I may want to write a book with Corinne about how this tipping point happened, we are really, the first president of, the next president of, the current president of Casualty Actuarial Society is also a Malaysian, or born in Malaysia anyway. So the Malaysians are, somehow we seize on this, and it's very multiracial. Chinese, Malays, Indians, and it's fantastic. We got a great story, great story. So keep this story alive, okay? Okay, I was going to ask anybody else, Jeffrey or Colin Pak Shong, you want to say? Okay, maybe Robert, want to say a few words? We gather together as friends, like a tea house. Robert, any perspective from China, or anybody want to say anything? Maybe you can just unmute yourself and say. Robert, the approach of Chinese philosophy a bit different. Chinese philosophy a bit different to crisis, a bit different.
I guess, yeah. I guess different. There's certainly a very strong cultural element to all these issues, but I think in spite of culture, human nature is the same, and I do completely agree and take to heart a lot of things that you say, and I think I've benefited tremendously personally from what I've heard today. So my sincerest thanks.
Yeah, you're very kind. You're very kind. You see the Chinese culture, the Taoism and the Chinese way of dealing with conflicts are entirely different. Different high context engagement. Whole series of books on it. Then the Hindu one and yoga meditation is also a bit different. And the West is very analytical, also high context communication, negotiation strategy, all very different. That's why when Obama spoke with Xi Jinping, they need to have a seminar or share context first, because they approach it so different that they miscommunicated with one another in Seattle about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So this is life. The world is a complex system. I don't know. Who else want to say a few words before we sign off? I can only call people I know. I mean, Jeff, you want to have a go? Colin, I have not heard from you for a while.
Sure, okay, Suee, if I don't know if everyone can hear me, but
yeah.
I think your words were very interesting. I share very much this idea about, finding purpose in life, because after you've done a few things, you start thinking, is the next thing going to be as interesting? I think a couple of things I would just mention is, one is having a good boss is very important. Somebody that you can learn from, that will sort of inspire you. And the other thing is to be fortunate enough to have very interesting things to be doing and to learn. To be able to look back and say, actually, even though I'm whatever it is now, 61, I still managed to learn some interesting stuff last year in the actuarial field. So I think that's really something that helps keep us going.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Okay, I think we will have to sign off shortly. I agree with you. The actuarial field, I mean, my current role enables me to be in communication with a lot of people. I mean, there's so much to learn, too much to learn. But the world of the internet is amazing, but you got to be careful on how you curate it, because there's so much. I think this conversation can go on forever. So I think maybe I certainly want to thank, I don't know whether Corinne got time because she's a working mother, but I want to thank Corinne because she has helped a lot. And Tao Hong, I'll come to you. And also Marie and Corinne was helping me in the last 2 days. And Logan, you've done a great job, yeah, and Sylvia, as well as Sophie's. But Tao Hong, you've got a question. Tao Hong, you put up your hand.
No, hi, Mr. President. Not really a good question, but it's just something, I really want to thank you actually to give us this session, because this is my first time I actually met you after you are on board. And currently, actually, I think I'm undergoing one of my crises. So the session was very useful. Thank you very much. So it gave me some, suggestion and the way, how I'm gonna do some like self-awareness and some of the reflection. What's the next step? What's the direction I want to go? It's a little bit confusing at this moment. Yeah, but got some ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. I think that's a good perspective. I think I have my crisis. I think most of us have their own crisis. Then it's a question of how we respond and cope. Right? I was going to mention when I was running this morning, I said that one person who was very impressive is Nelson Mandela. Right? He went to jail for 27 years. He come out with no apparent bitterness, yeah, and still could guide the nation. Yeah, it's a man whom I really look up to, and Deng Xiaoping will be another person, right? With such mastery, right? So and he started at the age of 74. So I tell myself, Mandela is so old, Mahathir is still going strong, Deng Xiaoping is 74. I think I'm just 61. I'm still a baby.
Yeah, still young.
Still young. Got 30 years left. So now let's start something together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we have got what we call that volumes of experience. We should pass it on to the younger generations.
Okay, I think Alicia, Nelson Mandela is incredible, right? His philosophy and also his Invictus, the movie, but I think it's also his whole persona. It's not just a complete, his whole persona of presence, right, and mindfulness. Yeah, you see the way he carry himself is just very different. Right? I admire him. So I wish to meet all of you all. Azim, you are in a cut and thrust of change. Azim, you want to share your perspective? You are in merger of 2 companies now. Singlife and Aviva?
No, I'm with FWD now, so there you are, there's change for you.
Oh, you went to FW. Well, equally, I think it's also a hub of change, from what I hear.
Yeah, it's an exciting place to be. But anyway, we won't talk about companies, that's not the purpose here. But I mean, I think I enjoyed your talks, Chieh, and I think the thing that comes out most apparently is your learning journey, right? A lot of what comes through is about learning at each stage through experiences or through academics or whatever it is, psychology. But I think the point for me is about purpose, right? You know, and you know, hearing what you said about your time at Prudential, you know, obviously that was a great chance for you to be CEO at such a young age. But you know, I just wondered if you felt that you were fulfilling your purpose. And the reason I asked that is because I've always felt, you know, at least in insurance, for those that work in insurance, insurance is an industry with real purpose, social good, and we help so many people, and that's always motivated me enormously in many of the roles that I've undertaken, and I think it still does today. But I agree with you, as we get older, we see different meaning, different inputs into our life. But anyway, that's just something some takeaways that I have.
That's beautifully put. Actually, if you just what you said, what Colin said, and what Patrick said earlier on, actually we are actually what IFOA is saying as well, right? Because I think the agenda we have in IFOA about speaking to sustainability issues, and we are making maybe it's not official yet, making quite a big push to influence regulation in the UK. Is that our businesses should be framed around what is needed by human values instead of financial value, which is based on very short-term pricing, right? This is complicated, yeah, because our whole economic system is designed that way, and we still want free market. But how that is best managed? So actuaries is at the heart of this, you know. So maybe what's the purpose? You know, insurance to be to serve the needs in a more social way and more efficient and effective way. This is work in progress. So we're in a good space now. That's very good, Azim. But Azim is I don't know Azim now, but I know he's more an agent of change. He's certainly not going to wait for change to happen around him. He's going to initiate it, because I know a bit about his background.
Well, no, I think we always have to push a bit here and there, right? Otherwise, we don't create that change that's so important, right? I mean, at this time of this stupid COVID crisis that we're all having to go through, we need change. We need to think about everything that we do and how we do it. So yeah, let's do things.
Yeah, thanks, Angelina. I think it's 12:15. I think we are 15 minutes past. I think we say goodbye so you all can go for your lunch. But it's wonderful to meet you, all my old friends and new friends. And I hope to meet you all. So Sylvia, you could. So Logan, you got any finishing points or housekeeping points, feedback forms or whatever?
Yeah, so I think I speak for all of us when we say that this is one of those times where I don't mind sacrificing lunch, but unfortunately, you know, lunch is important, and keeping to time, we are bounded by all that. So thank you so much. I think, you know, on behalf of ASM, I would like to thank Mr. Chieh for his thoughts and his way of facilitating thoughts from so many people and getting so many people to talk and give insights to us.